It's the True Penny Show with your host, James True Penny.
Hello and welcome to the True Penny Show. My name's James True Penny. This is my show. And today we are returning to Beginner's Guide of Professional Wrestling in Japan, episode something and 90. And to join me is a person whose idea this entire escapade was. It's Ruth. How are you doing, Mom?
I am great. I am very excited to talk about this in particular, especially because, this promotion just had their biggest show of the year today. So I'm like riding high.
Excellent. That's really cool. We are, in fact, talking about Osaka Pro Wrestling, a company founded in the late 90s. Now, we have looked at one Osaka Pro show in the past. If memory serves, myself and John looked at one of the very, very early Osaka Pro shows, which featured Dick Togo running a faction that interfered all the time. Stop me if that sounds familiar. In a dominant fashion with Super Delphin as top heel, and they were literally putting on shows in somebody's front room in Tokyo. So it was the very, very early days of the Osaka Pro promotion. We're a few years down the line here. Now, the thing is, and this is probably a recurring theme of this show, is you don't realize how big wrestling was in Japan in this time period. We're talking 2004. And then how small wrestling got within 18 months after this time period. And I think this is the big stress point is you look at pro wrestling in Japan at the moment and you see it as pretty fractured, and some companies do okay for a while and then things float away again, and some things do okay for a while and things float away again. What happened was in 2005 was a massive recession, a god-awful recession, a recession that didn't really go away, to be honest with you. And as a result of that, we kind of got left with the wrestling companies we are in now, as well as other factors such as you don't have to watch 3 TV channels anymore and all of the other things that went on in the modern world and other distractions. The MMA boom happened as well, which kind of took away some of wrestling's audience. So this is kind of the halcyon days of professional wrestling in Japan. We did not realize how good we got it, did we, Ruth?
No, it's such a weird thing to go back and look at this, I think, in all that context. And certainly the first time I watched the show we're going to talk about, I didn't have all that context. And when you start to look at actually what's going on in wrestling outside of just Osaka Pro, it's really interesting. Actually, for them, this was quite an interesting time. This was kind of a boom between two busts in that they had quite a few people leave in 2003, and they again had quite a few people leave in 2005. So this was them trying to ride out this wave of opportunity in terms of wrestling, but maybe not having the most secure base to do it.
Yeah. But intriguingly, a lot of the people who are on this show are major players in the professional wrestling world today.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them still wrestling, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the things I think people don't know about Osaka Pro in terms of both the wrestlers who were there or did wrestle for the promotion during kind of its heyday up until kind of 2010, but also now a lot of what professional wrestling looks like now is because of Osaka Pro. So yeah, we wouldn't have Takeshita, we didn't have Osaka Pro because he was a kids class, he attended there, he did their kids classes. We wouldn't have people like Toru, we wouldn't have the current champions of Osaka Pro, we wouldn't have Zeus, a Triple Crown champion, we wouldn't have Tadasuke, Hayata in Noah, now Haratoki, Kikuchi. There's a whole era of wrestlers that have come out of either being at Osaka Pro or training in their kids' classes and going to their shows when they were younger. So this is a really kind of influential time and influential company.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's all sorts of characters that crop up that are highlights of any True Penny show, shall we say. Fascinating haircuts, as ever. We will, of course, comment occasionally upon the barnets associated with these professional wrestlers. But let's start at the beginning. We're in Osaka, funnily enough. We're at Osaka Jo Hall. Not necessarily known for anyone else other than New Japan Pro Wrestling. So first of all, we're in enemy territory, kinda. But it's Osaka, so not really. But it's like I've been watching wrestling. This dates me once again because I am incredibly old. But I've been watching shows from Osaka Pro Hall, Jo Hall since the early 90s. And is the venue, and obviously Osaka Jo Hall is where the tastemakers go. You know, it's they're the people will make and break you, and that's an interesting kind of point when you come to an indie promotion. Really, let's be honest, this is an indie promotion, but they're putting 7,000 people in a building.
Yeah,
which is like
they've ever done.
Yeah, that is like, you know, it was like kind of exceptionally cool when the All Elite guys did their first show in Chicago, and they put like 10,000 people on an indie show, and everyone, that's amazing. And I'm like, it is kind of cool. This kind of used to happen all the time. Yeah. Like FMW used to put 30,000 people with no TV into arenas on a regular basis.
It's crazy, right?
It is. It's like this. It's cool. Don't get me wrong. And obviously, you know, we've had great things since then. But equally, it is just like, why was this? It's kind of partly down to, I think, the culture of fame in general. Like, when you have less choice, things are more famous. Like, I try to explain to my children that I teach that no one was as famous as Vera Lynn was famous, right? Because she was the option. We either listen to Vera Lynn or stare at a wall.
Yeah,
because
okay,
that's the thing. So it's like when in this particular era, anything that's new kind of like really hit because there wasn't as much static in the way. So putting 6,800 into Osaka Jo Hall is a phenomenal, even for the time period, kind of for a style that was kind of really, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of very niche in the sense of, I suppose it was mainstream because you'd had a lot of these wrestlers on mainstream shows, and a lot of the guys were coming from the big three promotions of the time. But again, it's still like, Kikitara matches aren't mainstream, are they?
Well, it's quite interesting because obviously they are more so now, but it like when Osaka Pro first started and they brought out Osaka Pro is a promotion that partly is geared towards children and a young audience. And I think that's why it tended to go for kind of masked characters. It also has a history and a base in lucha, so again those masked characters are very kind of popular. But when they brought out all these new masked characters, nobody had any idea what they were doing. It took several shows because all of their bits are repetition, for people to go, oh no, actually this is funny, the 300th time I've seen this.
Takes a while to build your faith in this particular characters. You have some patience. The other thing interesting about this is it's a Super J Cup show. It's Super J Cup 4th stage. I did do the maths. We are now on Super J Cup 9th stage. It's not very often put together tournament, single elimination, usually 8 in a round. The last one was won by ACH in California against El Fantasma in the final, and it was a New Japan Strong show. And that kind of like is, what's the word I'm looking for, indicative of Super J Cups in general. Super J Cups don't always have to be their own. The rights are owned by New Japan Pro Wrestling, but they loan it out to other promotions to look after on a regular basis. Michinoku Pro had done the previous one to this, I think. And it kind of has always been used to showcase a generation of wrestlers, much like the last one in New Japan, which was like 2019, was kind of there to showcase ELP and get him over as a junior heavyweight threat.
Totally.
Got him over more as a heavyweight threat, but here we are. It doesn't always work. And to showcase what's going on in junior wrestling. And this was a real interesting kind of tournament because you're on the cusp of the older generation kind of calming down a bit. So, like, if you think of the great junior heavyweight generation of Jushin Liger and Sasuke and Ultimo Dragon and Eddie Guerrero, those guys have moved on to heavyweight divisions, or they're kind of like not in the title picture anymore. They're working on doing other things, and they certainly feature in this particular show in a very specific way. But it's kind of like, this is a great way to kind of break ground on a new generation of junior heavyweights. And it kind of like, especially if you've got a patchy roster that you're trying to get over, a good way of getting them over as well.
Definitely. And the 3 previous years that they'd run, and they don't run them in order in any way. You know, the first one was 1994, the last one was before this one was 2000. It had been a 2-day tournament, and the field was much larger, and you had a lot more juniors actually involved in this. This is, I think, the smallest field they'd ever done. Because they were doing it in one day and essentially smushing it together with Osaka Pro's biggest show of the year, Hurricane, which was their biggest show annually up until I think 2014 maybe. And it's quite interesting because whilst you do have these young names coming forward, they're still coming out of the shadows. So at this point, you know, Liger is in this, and he is also Noah Junior champ. At that point, the way Liger runs kind of all over every promotion, just kind of, you know, taking championships left, right, and center. This is still that period, but he's not necessarily quite so loved for it by this younger generation that are coming through. But there's an interesting, the fact that Michinoku Pro ran this last in 2000. Osaka Pro had been founded by then. No Osaka Pro wrestlers attended that larger format one. Probably not as a shock, because Osaka Pro came out of a very unpleasant split between Super Delphin leaving Michinoku Pro. So the fact that it's gone from Michi Pro to Osaka Pro for me is quite interesting. They've kind of healed the rift. I don't think they really got close to doing so for a couple more years till after this, and it's still tense. But certainly they are picking up the baton from the enemy, effectively. So there's shades of old Michinoku Pro stuff that Delphin would have done throughout this show as well. But it's them also trying to be like, we are new, we are different.
Yeah, well, I mean, you even think about it, there's All Japan and Noah wrestlers on this show in 2004, and they were definitely not talking at that point. So it's like, they must have arrived on different buses and had people going down corridor. Don't go that way. But we'll talk about them later. But yes, so yeah, it was a tense time, which also didn't help when, you know, things fell apart, like we said, 18 months down the line. But let's be positive about the nice things that happened in 2004. I turned 30, for instance. Let's start with the first match. This first match kind of like shows you where we're at, really, in pro wrestling at the time. The first match is Naomichi Marafuji versus Young Kasai. Crazy Monkey himself, more on the monkey than the crazy at that particular time. Very literal Crazy Monkey. He had a tail and everything. And he has still has a reputation for being a bit crazy, as you'd expect. And Naomichi Marafuji is at the kind of the cusp of his junior heavyweight career. He's the junior ace of Noah at the time. He's world tag team champion with Global Honor Crown tag team champion with KENTA. And this is a really kind of interesting showcase of where they both are as wrestlers, because when you watch them now, all the core ingredients are still there. And it's like when we look at old wrestling, we have a tendency to kind of like, where does things develop and where do things become like the characters that have become secure in what they do now? And this is kind of then, right? This is 21 years ago. And I think Marafuji has grown as a performer, so has Kasai has grown as a performer. But equally, I think you see them as complete products in this match.
Yeah, definitely. I was very much in my American era the first time I watched this show, so I was primarily watching it for Marafuji and for KENTA's match that comes up later, and seeing it through the lens of, oh wow, Marafuji's cool. Look at all this stuff he does, and you can see, you know, he hadn't yet, I think, established himself. That came, you know, probably a couple of years later, 2006, 2008. He was still, to be in this tournament, you had to be in your first 6 years of your career. So he was still kind of relatively early on. But this is, you know, I would say this is Marafuji through and through in this tournament, except that this match is absolutely a Kasai match because he gets out table. And it's very much him leading it. He called this match before it started. He said, this is going to be a handsome battle. between, the monkey and Marafuji, who absolutely was selling himself on the basis of being the handsome young star of Noah, him and Kenta. So Kasai not so much. But he really drove Marafuji into his world, and to Marafuji's credit, he stuck with it, and I think that makes it a really interesting start to a tournament.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's always patterns to any Japanese show, and generally speaking, when you watch any Japanese big show, you tend to start the show off with a bang, right? You have a 6-man tag or a six-person tag. You tend to throw the kitchen sink at the first show to hook the audience in, and this is kind of the equivalent of that, but they haven't got time to do random 6-man tags. This isn't DDT. We haven't got 5 hours to crack on. So yeah, it does intrigue me. Is like, but this is the equivalent. Like, this is fireworks between two guys who are going to define different styles of heavyweight wrestling, but they're still juniors, and they've still got that level of intensity in between them that's going to become the defining style of Noah and the defining style of Freedoms. On a much more calmer level.
Yeah. Interestingly, Marafuji, I think, the same year, he became the second hardcore champion for Noah. So I guess this maybe gave him a taste, because he had been doing that in that era.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever gonna go for the broken glass and the barbed wire anytime soon. But yes,
he was far too much on the pretty boy side to be doing that. Still is, I think. He wouldn't be doing that.
Yes, but absolutely not. The second round match is 7 minutes and 1 second long, and is between Garuda. I'm going to assume I've pronounced that correctly, but one may be wrong. And Goa, who's now known as Hub, and has been a pro wrestler for 26 years, and he came from Osaka Pro, whereas Garuda is yet another trainee of Animal Hamaguchi and Hayabusa. So there's a strong indie wrestling kind of streak to him. I found this really interesting because I hadn't watched either of these two, and because it becomes difficult. One of the reasons why the Trooping Show's beginner guide tends to stop at around about 2004 is because there's just not as much stuff as to watch on video of complete shows. Partly because people have taken them down, partly because, like we said, there's a massive recession and it's harder to find those shows that maybe appeared on Japanese TV once and people didn't really go record them and they didn't get anywhere else. And we try our level best to, but it's difficult. There's like a 10-year gap between 2004 and the start of New Japan World and the DDT universe that there's just a difficult time to find video. So I haven't seen either of these two. So this was refreshing. This was really interesting to watch two guys who are kind of indicative of the freelancer scene at the time have a really interesting match, especially two masked wrestlers, and kind of, as you've been saying, it's kind of like indicative of Osaka Pro's characters at the time.
Definitely. This is a really interesting one for me. I'm a huge Hub fan. Think he's fantastic. He's been through so many different kind of things in his career, and his masks are always incredible. But he was actually a Michinoku Pro trainee who effectively got poached at the point that Delphin left. Suddenly kind of came with Delphin as kind of when he announced he was leaving a press conference, and became the original Osaka Pro trainee. So his anniversaries are always with the company effectively. And he'd initially been given a really big character in the sense that he was Delphin's younger brother in kayfabe. So he was a massive baby face, and then he had supposedly been sent to Mexico for training, as you do, but then this other kind of evil guy who definitely seemed a lot like him showed up in the heel faction, and obviously it wasn't him, but it wasn't. So him trying to make his way as a relatively young wrestler still, but for the first time as a heel, and trying that out is quite interesting, because obviously fans are still kind of warming to him as the previous kind of lovable set up future of Osaka Pro, but he's evil. And I don't think it took him a while to get the best of that, but when he did, he was amazing. However, Garuda is interesting. So he was he'd basically been set up as Hayabusa's successor, with small mantle to take on. And he'd spent about a year really trying to live up to that, and not always doing brilliantly at it. And he ended up being, I think it was the year before this, unmasked. And basically Hayabusa had been like, look, you don't have to be me, it's fine, you can walk away from this, like you don't carry all these expectations with you. And Garuda had gone, no, I want the mask, I'm gonna carry this. So like, as a story, like, love it, absolutely love the fact that you've got this guy who's trying to live up to that name. Ultimately though, we haven't heard of this guy, and on the whole, that isn't the story that ultimately plays out. We have a now. So it doesn't not fairy tale happy ending, but you've got a guy who's essentially being pegged and still has this mantle of you are going to be a top junior at the point that this tournament is taking place. So he was in a good place, and it's not so bad that he beats effectively the home guy.
No, it furthers his story and allows for other things down the line, as well. It's intriguing, like seeing the names and the bits that you missed, because like I said, there isn't an awful lot of footage of it. And like then getting into when you get this extra knowledge that you have, which I appreciate you sharing with us. It does kind of like make you see things differently. Of course, Hayabusa now wrestling again.
Yeah,
just had a 20-year layoff. He's fine. Because of course he is.
I interestingly did a Osaka Pro show a few weeks ago.
There you go, you see.
All comes around, wrestling.
Yeah, tag with Junichi Shinzaki again. That's amazing. Who we'll see later on in the show as well. But yeah, it is interesting to see, like, again, and I think that as well is those stories are difficult to tell in like the fractured environment that wrestling becomes, and that's possibly the reason why he didn't become like the legend that Hayabusa did. Yeah. Which is,
and FMW being just interesting as a company.
Yes. So let's move on to Kazuya Yuasa. Was defeated by Wataru Inoue. Inoue is another guy who, it's really interesting me, like, obviously as a New Japan fan, there's kind of like that post-Liger period where they're trying desperately to find the next Liger. And there's about 3 guys on this card who could have been the next Liger. And it never quite works out because of things. Like, I suppose it starts with Kanemoto, who was was Tiger Mask 3 and hated being Tiger Mask 3 and was just like, nope, can't do this, and ends up being Kanemoto and ends up being great, but he doesn't have that all-encompassing appeal. And then Inoue's another one, but finds his best success actually as a heavyweight before he retires. And it is just like, until Hiromu Takahashi came along, there was this gap where Liger had essentially vacated the mantle of being the ace of the company, because he had to, because he was too old. And it wasn't that he couldn't go. He was actually a better wrestler than a lot of guys they had. But they just kind of ran into this brick wall of, what do you do with Liger? We can't run him at the title again for the 12th time. That would be silly. And so Inoue is another one of these guys who is in that period of junior development. And here he's wrestling Kazuya Yuasa. I found this a really interesting match from that point of view. What did you think of this one?
This is interesting because I don't think I'd seen Inoue as a junior. He wasn't what I expected, but he also was what I expected. My God, they just hit each other. And this isn't a typical junior fight.
No.
And that's good. It breaks up a tournament like this. But oh my God, they do really hit each other. It is much more, I think, interesting in their heavyweight style, and interesting. Yuasa goes on to become Gaina, who then becomes, heavyweight success in Osaka Pro later on. So actually, these guys are the blueprints of what they're gonna be, but it's not typical junior wrestling.
No,
I liked it for that reason. In a tournament like this, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily anything massively special.
no. I think this is like, and there's also like there's ways of going up to the heavyweight division, in the sense of, Inoue is clearly a junior who's going to grow into being a heavyweight. Whereas, like, you watch Marafuji and you watch KENTA later on the show, they're junior heavyweights, and they haven't changed. It's just that they're that good. They don't need to be full-on heavyweights to be, like, taken seriously as heavyweight challengers. They're just awesome. Whereas Inoue would have to put weight on, and kind of like he's still doing the style. It's in a similar position that Drill Malone is in at the moment, of too big to be a junior. So you have to be a junior to get taken seriously as a heavyweight, because we can't just bung you straight in the heavyweight division, or you'll just get monstered by everyone. So he's had to have a growth. Same issue Kenny Omega had, funnily enough, and Shingo Takagi in New Japan. And it's interesting that issue has not gone away. It's been there for 20 years, and it's just the way it is, I guess.
And you get people stuck for 2 years in this kind of, they're too heavy to be a junior, but they're not a heavyweight.
Yeah.
It takes so long.
I don't know who looked at Shingo Takagi and said, we can push him as a junior.
You walked in, you're just like, that guy?
If he squints, turn your head to one side, he looks kind of like 200 pounds. But yes, but certainly an interesting match. And then the next match absolutely fascinates me. Takahiro Murahama, who was an MMA fighter before he became a pro wrestler, and his wrestling is very much a shoot style. He's wrestling kind of catch as catch can, grappling with some strikes. And a lot of wrestlers have since made that style their own, and he's kind of one of the early crossovers who's come from mixed martial arts to wrestling, as opposed to the other way around, which was kind of the trend at the time, Inokiism, if you will. And there was just MMA guys like Bob Sapp who just didn't really change. They didn't wrestle so much as just hit people really hard, and that was okay. Because he was Bob Sapp and he can make a living, it's fine. Whereas Murahama has adapted his style into pro wrestling exceptionally well, and he is wrestling Taichi Ishikari, better known to us as Taichi. And we have a long history of Taichi and the Troopany show, because he's been around in New Japan as long as we've been doing Troopany shows, and we all hated him to start with, but we didn't get the backstory. And slowly but surely, all of us, except Marcus, have been turned to loving him. Marcus still hates him, but this is kind of watching this match, and he tries so hard, and he's really on top for the majority of the match, and then basically what happens is Murahama kind of like bulldozes him towards the end of the match to take the victory out in 5 minutes and 3 seconds. But Taichi just tries so hard. And he just tries so hard. And this Kawada's backstage. He's going to tear a strip off of him for losing to a guy from Osaka Pro. And he's just like, you can see the entire life path of him falling apart in this 5-minute match. And there's the turn on Kawada, there's the turn on Kojima, there's the joining of Suzuki-gun, there's a whole thing in this match. And every time, because it's happened a lot, like lately, like I was watching, there's a couple of Instagram channels that do classic Puro matches, and one of them was Junichiro Tenaru wrestling Taichi, and it wasn't really Junichiro Tenaru was wrestling Taichi, it was a Tenaru back in All Japan, hates everything, and hates everyone, and especially hates rookies. And he just splattered him for 5 minutes, and then picked him up, and then splattered him some more. And you just see, like, the story that's been told over the last 20 years in those matches, and you can see it just now, is just like, oh my God, you poor boy. The things that are going to happen to you. And it's all going to be horrific, and we're going to enjoy every second of it.
so funny because at this point, like, Taichi is spending most of his career getting beaten up by Masanobu Tsuchi. He's only just in his getting ruined, emotionally by Kawada era. He's still relatively early on in his emotional traumas. Although his previous tournament, apparently, Kawada did call him and said, if you don't win this match, don't come back. So he's well supported. Kenya apparently said nice things about him, but probably he just quite enjoyed the entire process of beating him up. So it's got this kind of mix of being like slightly promising, as in people are saying nice things about him whilst they're beating him to a pulp. And starting to go through some emotional trauma. And, his kind of backstage from this show was very much him kind of going, oh God, I'm a loser, which then is the pattern he repeats for the next 20 years. So it is baby Taichi just perfectly being baby Taichi. I love it.
It is. He is like Chelsea Spolin, who she hasn't done a show with us for a while, but she didn't get Taichi at all. And then explained a bit more to her, and she went, "Oh, he's the Miz." And it was like, yeah. He's not supposed to be good. He's supposed to be terrible and manipulative and a horrible person because he's just been shat upon from a great height for 20 years. Yeah. And it's taken, well, this was 20 years ago, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose 21 years. It's taken him till the end of Suzuki-gun, so what, like 18 years later, to finally realise, actually, I can build relationships and trust people, and not everyone's horrible to me, because Zach was nice to me for a bit.
And we can all give ourselves a break. Emotional healing takes time.
Exactly, especially in wrestling, because
I did want to talk about Murahama though, because Murahama at this point is the Osaka Pro champion, and he is effectively their ace because Delphin stepped back a little bit, and he is. I mean, it is the era of pro wrestling at the time, right? You've got this starting to cross over with MMA, and Murahama had actually been voted Tokyo Sport Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago. He had a relatively successful kickboxing career, MMA kind of stuff before and alongside being a pro wrestler. So 3 days after this tournament, he's in a K1 match. So
of course he is.
He also seems to be a really grumpy bastard, but
they I
think him adapting to wrestling is so very true, and he does make a clear distinction. He says, one is fighting and one is wrestling. People don't want to see you do that over here and this over here. They are completely different things. But it seems like he was never particularly a politica or any kind of he didn't necessarily get on with the backstage part of wrestling, shall we say. And ultimately injury meant that he did step away from wrestling in 2007, which is a shame because he was getting so much attention around this time. New Japan took quite a lot of interest in him. He ended up having quite a few crossover things. He got a couple of IWGP Junior title challenges. His one with Minoru Tanaka is great and highly recommend looking at that. But he's just a really interesting guy, and an interesting guy for, I think, Osaka Pro to pick. I think they had a good read on the era in terms of picking that guy to be their ace, because he very much fit, I think, what was being looked for and what was getting attention.
Yeah, I think, and you can see his influence in people like Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly, Davey Edwards, and that Ring of Honor kind of American strong style of the 2010s. It's basically what he was doing 6 or 7 years earlier. It's intriguing that he's coming along at that period in a promotion that kind of stresses aerial work and stresses comedy, and here's this thing that's not like all the others. Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's kind of what they're doing again. They've now got an MMA guy, well, two actually. One who is in his, I think, 40s now, and then one who's just early 20s, both of whom have MMA careers alongside doing the wrestling. And they're kind of starting them off on, well, certainly the older guy on a similar kind of track, because Murahama came into Osaka Pro and basically beat everybody by KO for about 3 months.
Yeah.
I think Delphin was the one to take him down in the end, unsurprisingly.
A promoter taking on the top champion and defeating him.
Delphin is what you
Professional
expect.
wrestling. Sorry, carry on.
But yeah, he is an interesting blueprint and something that Osaka Pro is now still doing, and I think a lot of, again, pro promotions are doing, is bringing in, again, as we've got this whole era, bringing in people with a background in other sports and other combat sports. So it's interesting to kind of see it kind of come full circle.
Yeah, definitely. It's he clearly is more influential than perhaps he's been given credit for. But again, I think that falls down to the era. Like we said, there's not a lot of footprint in media for this kind of era. It's interesting when I've done Joshi shows from this era. People have gone, "Oh, that's really cool." No one ever talks about it, and it's because you just can't find it. As the reason why I've like buried it off of Daily Motion from somewhere that some or we did the life and times of somebody whose name's completely escaped me. Yagi Yokota, that's it. I should remember her name, definitely. And we found a bunch of her stuff on a Russian tube channel that was probably slightly dodgy, but you had to watch it because we were trying to like figure out what she did after like 2003, because there's nothing there. So even some of the biggest names in the industry, it's difficult to find that historical footprint, and he should probably get more kudos than he has gotten in his career. Speaking of Joshi.
Oh, yes. Nice segue.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Ofune and Apple Miyuki went for 6 minutes and 52 seconds. They're from KENTA Dojo. So this is Taka's crew of the time. When Taka came back from WWE, he set up his own promotion, as well as working for New Japan, various other companies, and that company became KENTA Dojo, which is now 2AW after the unpleasantness, which we've been into many times before with Taka. And this was, they were kind of had a long-standing relationship with DDT for many years. The legendary 108-person New Year's Eve Battle Royal at Hurricane Hall at DDT, KENTA Dojo, and someone else run. Was it? I can't remember who it was. That was part of that. So that was kind of around this era, maybe a little bit later. But yeah, so these were kind of the top stars of the company as women in a mixed gender promotion. And it's again something that the current Just Tap Out crew, which is Taka's current promotion, still do. It's a mixed gender promotion. There's lots of Joshi crossover. And Taka has become kind of like the premier trainer of women's wrestlers, which has always been, how can I put it? It's always been kind of different, right? You've always had women trained on Joshi and men trained on Puroresu, and there wasn't much crossover between the two until really the 2000s. I think really with when Battle Art started training the women in Arceon was the first time that kind of crossover happened. So this is kind of very different for that particular time period, and they're an interesting pairing, and it's interesting to watch them. Generally speaking, Ofune is considered the bigger of the two stars, but Miyuki would end up like going on to having a career outside of KENTA Dojo, and was a pretty big kind of star of her era. So it was interesting to watch these two on a show that's predominantly dominated by men. What did you think of this one?
I think they were given long.
No.
And
Funny that.
For me, it is a match that doesn't really get going as much as it certainly could have done, and that is a shame. I have a huge fondness for Apple Miyuki, or as she's known, Hibiscus Me now. And she still does comedy stuff with Osaka Pro, great in Riku Dragon Pro Wrestling as well, and she does stuff all over the place still, particularly in Osaka, and yeah, really, really fond of her. So I was kind of rooting for her a little bit here, but unfortunately not to be. But it's interesting because there were and there still really are kind of Joshi matches on Osaka Pro shows. It has been hugely a male-dominated promotion apart from the comedy spots. So for them to at least get this as a kind of at least serious offer match is something, and I think Taka's influence is probably part of that. But it's something I think is missing because we do actually have some fantastic female wrestlers coming out of Osaka at the moment.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's like such a. I'm not saying there wasn't. I mean, the flip side happened a lot in the previous era. If you go back to Big Egg Universe, there was a Michinoku Pro show, which featured a lot of the same guys who were on this card, on an all-women's show. There has always been a link between that two styles of wrestling, between Japanese lucha and Joshi, and I think that's interesting that they kept that connection. But I think it's probably like Taka's influence on this card in general, which is quite strong. And
then I'm sure that's to some. I mean, he's only a year into, I think, KENTA at that point, and I imagine, and certainly it would have not been a crazy decision on Delphin's part to recapture some of what he was best known for in Michinoku Pro, which is going to include bringing in your bad guys, and Taka kind of being a prime example.
He's kind of the ultimate heel in junior heavyweight wrestling for a long time. He was the heel independent junior heavyweight champion in FMW for a long time. Even though he was kind of the babyface of Michinoku Pro, he was kind of the ideal. He was the ideal guy you could just plug and play into any situation, and to an extent still is. You know, he's still a very capable wrestler in his middle age.
And KENTA guys kept showing up in Osaka Pro and invading Osaka Pro in the same kind of style for the next decade or so. So it started continued well.
Speaking of Michinoku, guys, see, I'm on the roll with the segues today. Then Teo, otherwise known as Terry Boy, was captaining his team of Mikami and a young whippersnapper by the name of Tomohiro Ishii. You may have heard of him. This is a tiny Tomohiro Ishii. He's all nice and shaved-headed and angry. But he's the babyface at this particular point in time. Kind of. And then they're going up against Azteca, Kinetaro Kanemaru, formerly Wing Kanemaru, and Magma. For those GLATE fans, that's Magnitude Ishikawa in this particular day and age. Showing, like, you know, because I was like, instant, I recognized him instantly. He's one of the master wrestlers of the Japanese freelance league. Oi, it's him. He's cool. I like him. He's good.
Yes.
Kanemaru would wrestle for Osaka Pro on the previous Hurricane show, because I had seen the previous Hurricane show in a street fight, and he's calmed down since the deathmatch heyday because, well, there's no big deathmatch promotions left for him to wrestle in, and this is a promotion aimed at children, so you can't palm him through flaming tables, can you?
Yeah, no blood allowed in Osaka Pro.
No. Yeah, so there's a little bit of violence, but it's kind of a relaxed kind of violence. Issues in it, so there's going to be violence, isn't there? It's going to be, have to be. It does make me smile that, like, he's gone to AEW and his hard edges have been robbed off by Willow Nightingale just calling him Tommy. Because Willow Nightingale's the best babyface possibly wrestling's ever seen. The purest of thoughts that she had. It's like, he's Tommy. This monster that's demolished people for the last 30 years. No, he's called Tommy.
But I still remember the pictures you have of Chaos in the Hello Kitty kind of setup.
Yes.
And that's my favorite.
He knows, he's aware.
Very aware.
Very aware of the things that he's capable of. And this is a bit mad, to be honest. It's kind of like, it's because styles make fights, and as like the standard mantra of the Troopany show, styles makes fights, whether it's pro wrestling or anything else. And this is kind of like such a mixed bag of different styles of wrestlers. You've got grapplers, you've got aerial guys, you've got veterans, you've got deathmatch wrestlers. So it's got to be fun because none of them know what they're doing.
It's chaos.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and It's the opposite when you watch like a 6-man tag and it's a bunch of people who've never wrestled together before and they're all over the place. This is a good version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I was gonna say, I didn't dislike it, but I don't know, like, if you know these guys later and you're coming, you're going like, okay, what is it they're gonna do? It was not what I expected.
no.
And I think that huge Terry Boy fan. I could have just watched 20 minutes of him doing stuff. So I think maybe that's why I didn't love it as much as I could have done.
I think that is the issue. It is like I had a new insight into that day. I watch far too much Instagram Reels, obviously, clearly. But there's Shona Baszler is doing a load of seminars at the moment. She's talking about like wrestling different people, and someone asked her like, why, how did you get good? And they said, because I was paired with Kairi Sane in practice in Stardom and in NXT. They just took us together, so we just wrestled each other every day for 2 years. And then they put us in together in a feud in NXT, and unsurprisingly, we blew the doors off because I knew what she was going to do, and she knew what I was going to do, and therefore it all worked. And it does like that. If you see two people together that you haven't seen before, or like someone like Ishikawa or even Alex Stain that's coming into World Tag League for one tour, they have an incredibly hard job because no matter how much tape you watch, you're not doing it, are you? And in situations like this where you've got 6 people who are completely disparate in their styles, it's amazing it's as good as it is. But equally, you're right, it probably could have been better if they'd known each other a bit more.
But this is very, in terms of Osaka Pro's big shows, and they are trying to mix in Jacob and also do their Hurricane thing because effectively they do want people to come back. You've bothered to come to Osaka, come show up. They have a show like this, a match like this every time on Hurricane that's a bit chaotic. It's kind of a showcase. It's kind of like, here's some good guys. There you go. See what happens.
Yes, but well worth a watch if you want to watch chaos wrestling, to be honest with you. Speaking of chaos, it's all linking together now. Maybe this show is better plotted than we thought. Speaking of chaos, it's the OPW Miyabitsu Sikachi title. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing any of that correctly somewhere in there. Ishinobu Kamen wrestling Ebisan, 8 minutes and 4 seconds. Now, the previous year, they'd had a 2 out of 3 falls absolute classic, which is widely considered to be one of the greatest comedy matches of all time. And there was loads of echoes in that in this particular match. We know Ishinobu Kamen today as Kikitaru. And he is one of my followers on Twitter, which is nice. He's lovely. I like him a lot because he follows me on Twitter. And of all the wrestlers that follow me, I have Atsushi Onita, Kikitaru, and Sergeant Slaughter. Nice selection.
Now that would be a chaos match.
Yes, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? That would be absolutely excellent. This is very much of the Osaka Pro style, and absolutely killed me a couple of years ago was the fact that just as like Chono and Muto were doing big sit-down talks about pro wrestling in the 1980s and 90s, and they were doing some little bit of backstage information, things that people didn't know, and all those things. Ebisan and Kikitaru did one for these matches, which is just fantastic. And then had a rematch afterwards. And they were just kind of like talking rubbish about and comedy about and jokes about like these matches, which are just fun, just endless fun. These two feuded for what, like 10 years, and it never got boring.
I mean, they're still doing it now. It's just we happen to be on stand number 3.
Yeah, he wears them out.
Basically. Yeah, it's this. I mean, this is classic Osaka Pro in that probably the entrance for the comedy match takes about as long as the
comedy match.
Yeah, which I think was good in this case. It's not their best version of it. It was kind of let's hit the classics and go home. And in fact, actually, they didn't go home. They went to PWG and NWA to do this in the States for 2 weeks afterwards, which is utterly bonkers. They're in a tag team with Nasawa, which I would actually like to. But it's classic. And if you want to see what these guys do, this is kind of it. And certainly Kishin Kamen is based on a character, a statue that sits in Osaka's Dotonbori district, essentially their entertainment tourist district, of like a clown. And he's a mascot of like their food. And so you come out and he gets like sweets put around his neck. He hands out sweets as well. It takes a really long time. Having been to an Osaka Pro show, it takes that long in an audience of 300. They just keep going round and round, and there's a lot of kids. And it's the same with Ebe-san. Ebe-san is based on a god of fortune, and so he comes round and you put money in his box and he blesses you. I have been blessed by Ebe-san.
So you will live forever.
Blasted for all of 5 seconds. But it is a good experience. But I think it is a thing in Osaka Pro that people find the most impenetrable and weird. And I think you just have to go with it. And let it be stupid. It's not supposed, don't take it seriously. Let it be really, really stupid. And then suddenly, Kishin Kamen's going to pull out a ridiculous, high flying move, and that's it. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's it. Big dumb wrestling, as me and Marcus call it. And this is the epitome of big dumb wrestling. You just kind of have to deal with it, and that's fine. Just unplug, watch, enjoy. Does it make you smile? Good. Move on with your day. Don't get angry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all Osaka Pro wrestlers have to get good at doing this style, and they are all essentially good. Their timing is based on being able to get good at this comedy style, and it is the thing that was supposedly, I mean, it's in every wrestling company has this to some extent, but it was going to be their thing, because Osaka is known for comedy. They're a regional promotion. Let's showcase the kind of best of Osaka, which is comedy. So the Meibutsu Sekaiichi is essentially #1 in the world specialty, and the specialty being the Osaka specialty of comedy. So it's still going as a kind of format in Osaka, and I love it. I know everybody. I did want to point out though, shout out to referee Matsui, who
I was just about to say,
who is now in DDT, formerly of Michinoku Pro, and came over with Osaka Pro. He is such a good comedy referee. He's such a good referee, but his expressions, you can see it here, and he does it now. It's amazing.
If you want to see how good a referee can be, not just any comedy referee, but any referee can be, if you go back to Ultimate Party, it's on Wrestle Universe, and there is the 6-way match for one of the championships. I can't remember which one it is, but there was supposed to be a blindfold 6-way match, and all the wrestlers are sitting out and trying to figure out how to do a blindfold match beforehand on the show. And then they all look over at Matsui, who's just in the corner playing cards with him, playing solitaire and smiling to himself. And they just came up with the conclusion, if we blindfold the referee, this is going to be way more fun to watch. And Matsui referees a match with a blindfold on. And it's genius. It's absolute genius, because Matsui is just the best referee there possibly is. Because you can't do those things without a sense of comedy timing, a sense of spatial awareness, which is on another level, let's be honest. And he's been at it for so long, and he understands the concept and gets it. Like any referee, unless you are really good, you can't do that, right? The basic core principles of doing everything a referee needs to do have to be there, because if you don't have the basis, you can't subvert it. You have to know the story. And it the Bryce Rensburg Invisible Man versus Invisible Man match is the other great performance of refereeing history. And it's and Bryce is the same thing. Unless he was an absolutely astoundingly good referee, none of that works. And Bryce is massively influenced by Matsui and Osaka Pro in general, and one of the reasons why he's such a dominant force in AEW as a referee. And I also, just a mild aside, it annoys me that a lot of wrestling fans don't like Bryce and the other AEW referees because we know who they are, because they've been trained by WWE not to care about referees when you should absolutely care about referees.
Number one, if I go to a new promotion and they announce the referee or they use the referee's name, big tick, because your referees should be known. They shouldn't be noticeable, but they should be known.
Yeah, that's it. I crack jokes about Marty Asami constantly. That's all there is on my feed. Okay? Because I know who he is. And he's rubbish. That's kind of the deal. That's because he's Marty Asami, he's rubbish. Right? The whole point is he's a terrible referee. He's not very good. And that's why House of Torture win all the time. Because he isn't very good. So, but I know that. And I know the traits, so I know what I'm looking out for. And if you're a mild fan who picks up on those things, then you understand, right? Like Red Shoes in New Japan is the stern referee who gets the job done. All the Noah referees, you know, will all do the same thing in the same ways because that's how Noah works. So there's a language fed to you by referees that's really necessary for you to understand how a promotion's going to work. So if you know a match if you're watching New Japan and Red Shoes is refereeing, you know it's going to be pretty loose. There's going to be a lot of brawling. There's an expectation of what's going to happen. You've already the metadata is already ticking in your brain. Whereas if you go to Noah, you know the referees are pretty much all going to be the same. They're all going to deliver it in a certain way. But that's how it's supposed to work, right? Like, you know, that's
It drives me crazy that people don't give that respect to referees, because I mean, Osaka Pro now has a young one referee, Kensuke, who's like, I mean, he looks like he's 12. He's absolutely adorable. His comedy timing is immense, and he gets that from the types of matches they have to put on. But they also choose to put him in particular matches and not others. And it's the same with all kind of promotions. You build on the strengths of who you've got in that space, and they do such an incredible job. And Matsui's kind of draws a lot on Kohei Wada over in All Japan, and that's kind of his master. There was an entire storyline in DDT about the Dick Togo invasion, and Matsui went over with Dick Togo, and Wada like came from All Japan trying to bring him back to the good side. Like, you can do so much with it if you let that run free.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even back in the day, referees like Tommy Young in the NWA, Nick Patrick in WCW, Max Ward in European wrestling, you knew what you were going to get. So that sets a tone for a match. If Max Ward is refereeing a joint promotions match, it's serious business, because they only bring Max in for the serious stuff. So therefore, there's an expectation you have there. So yeah, it's important. Sorry for that mild aside, but I felt the rant coming.
It was really important.
Next up, we're back into the tournament. Naomichi Marafuji is going up against Garuda, 10 minutes and 22 seconds. And this is kind of like the game-making performance of Marafuji here, as he sets himself through to the semi-final. And once again, like we're saying, he's kind of the finished package, except for the hair, which is, wow.
It's an era. Fine.
It is. It's 2004 Scene Boy. There's a dashboard confessional in his CD player in his car. I can tell you that now.
I have never heard Marafuji referred to as 2004 Scene Boy, but I see it.
Yesterday, I was driving to Gainsborough, and through my village, I presume she isn't listening to this, I saw someone with seeing 2004 single haircut. She's like young, so I'm guessing she's like, throwing it back, which is really cool. Dyed blue as well. It was like, that's a cracking haircut. Fantastic, young lady. Approve of you.
Well, yeah, there's a lot about this show that dates it. It's fascinating. I kind of wish, I don't think they did it in the 4-hour version that we watched, but I don't think it had any commercials on. One of my favorite things about early Osaka Pro is catching the commercials. For the reason that they are all in there, because they had a solid TV deal, and they are actually one of the easier promotions to catch for that kind of 2000s period. But they keep all the commercials in, and they're amazing.
Yeah,
to be fair, they're not much better now, but
I think that's as well is one of the this era of wrestling it dates harder because like we're doing the Stan Hansen Life and Times at the moment. Obviously, that's a lot of All Japan in the 90s, and everybody's wearing black tights and black boots. You judge a person by his level of grimace, and and it does make it timeless because they're literally not wearing enough clothes to be fashionable. They're just functional wrestling attire. You can tell a bit from the haircuts. Johnny Ace finally gave up in his mullet in 1998, which is Johnny Ace. But anyways, but there is that kind of like other promotions don't date because like everything was simpler, right? They were trying to sell. All Japan were trying to sell simpler stories to an adult audience, whereas this is trying to be as bright and colourful as possible, and that's not a bad thing. Marafuji's nowhere, so obviously he's not like, you know, of the same kind of presentation stripe, but equally, you look at the general like aesthetic of this show, it is incredibly bright and colourful. You only have to look at the logo, which I see on your T-shirt because you're representing today, and look how colourful it is. You compare to that to say like the Noah logo of black and white on green, or the All Japan logo of red on white. It's very simple, very direct. Whereas Osaka Pro, you can see they're trying to find a different audience. They're trying to find a new audience that will grow with the company.
Yeah, I mean this speaks to Delphin actually, and Delphin's serial promotion founder. I think he's on number 5 at the moment. But a lot of what he brings into is around the entertainment industry, and the logo I believe he had designed from somebody from the entertainment industry, and it's still there now. But also the Osaka Pro, they for the first couple of years they ended up touring around trying to pick up the old kind of Michi Pro fans, but also even then, you know, Michi Pro still runs Tokyo now. But they found a base, and they found a base in a place called Festival Gate, which essentially was a large kind of theme park / shopping center, a place where kids were and families were. So they very much based themselves in a place where people go for entertainment, people are coming out to come here. And they were there for several years, and then they moved to Dotonbori, which again, entertainment district. They have that kind of variety show entertainment idea on their kind of radar. They have some of their referees are comedians. Their current what do you call it? Commentator is a comedian, is a well-known Osaka comedian. And Zeus has a ambition. Zeus is their current president, to have a base in Universal Studios Osaka. It's just part of how they are built that they want to bring elements of the entertainment industry into what they see as this performance. And I think that works really well for them. I don't think a lot of companies could do that. I think it probably helps being smaller in a regional company because of the flexibility. But yeah, it is very much them. Although certainly in the early 2000s, I don't think they thought through entertainment industry enough to care about music rights. So there's an amazing amount of offspring peppered throughout the kind of first decade of Osaka Pro.
I think when Kanamura turned up, they said you can come as long as you bring your CD collection with you.
I mean, it does help that they're like the chairman, sound guy, and all round everybody. I think he's the ring announcer as well. He's a musician. He does a lot of their themes now. Like they've just always put everything, kind of throw all the creativity and entertainment at this show.
Yeah, and it shows because it is like it's a big old show to fill Osaka Jo Hall for a company of this size, and the presentation's fantastic. The production quality. If you go back to the comedy matches intro, there's like 30 women per wrestler all doing coordinated dance. So they must have like hired like 2 dance troupes to like put this entire thing together. It's ridiculous. But it doesn't look right if you half-arse it, does it?
No. I mean, they still get like kids' dance troupes practicing for 3 weeks before doing a show for 300 people now.
Yeah, this is it. It is just like, it does, it's kind of like the pageantry and everything that like you want. But again, it's just subverting the expectation. Like it's very kind of lucha libre as well to have like women come out in front of your wrestlers, and you still get that in CMLL, not so much in, or sometimes in AAA. Probably not now in AAA. It's too much of a cost. You used to get it in Europe as well, and I used to do my head in. But like, if you watch there used to be a European wrestling show on Eurosport, like midweek tea time, and it'd be French wrestling. And French wrestling back in those days, certainly Central European wrestling worked off of like a circus tent. So you take your circus tent, you set up your audience, and because it was the 90s and it was perfectly fine, you would have topless women coming out with, like, not just one or two, you would have topless women circling the ring to present the wrestlers to you.
Yeah, that's quite French.
Yeah, and it'd be Owen Hart who would be on another European tour with 6 lovely models that they've hired because they've done it on a TV show. So we'd best make sure they're half naked. And then the heel come out, and Owen would beat the heel, and everyone go home happy. And everyone would carry on like nothing had happened. Did you see the 6 half naked women? No, that was just me then. Okay. Anyway.
I mean, this is somewhat unusual for Osaka Pro, I have to say, because it does very much lean towards the family-friendly audience kind of stuff.
Yes.
But I do love the variety show side of it, and I think a lot of people think when I describe the company as kind of being one that's aimed at children, and it is. It's not exclusively for children, but it is aimed to attract children and families with how bright it is, with the kind of mix of matches that it has, the fact that there's no blood, all that kind of thing. But people think that means it's really simple. And one of the things I do really love about Osaka Pro is that it isn't simple. And I think you also find this in like Japanese media broadly when we talk about like Studio Ghibli films or whatever. They're not like uncomplex. They deal with hard stuff. They're about war. Like they're really complicated, deep, difficult things, but they're in a way that children can access them and understand them, which makes them a great promotion if Japanese isn't something that you speak or have a great deal of kind of maybe cultural context around. You can still engage with it and understand it, but it doesn't mean that it's basic. It doesn't, I think the way, for example, we do Butlins wrestling in England or really when we talk about kids wrestling from a English point of view, we mean really simple, train you to boo that guy, train you to cheer that guy, the guy you cheer for wins. Like it's very basic. And this isn't that.
No, I mean, if you watch I strongly recommend you don't. If you watch the early Saudi Arabian shows from WWE, they basically do what End of the Pier Wrestling does in the UK, which was have a match to show you how professional wrestling works. Yeah. Because it's completely new audience have never seen professional wrestling before. So the best show you what to do, and here's how you go about it. You cheer for this guy and you boo for this guy, and this is it. I saw a show, Lincoln Showground last summer. I went to see a car show, and there was a wrestling show on at the car show, and it was packed. It was absolutely rammed. And in this circus tent, funnily enough. Circus tents and wrestling, made to go together. You write your own joke here. But it was absolutely rammed. I couldn't actually see the show, so I didn't stop for the whole show because I couldn't see. There was too many posts in the way. But the first match was, here's how professional wrestling works. Yeah. And you're right. It's an incredible starting point if you don't get pro wrestling or you're not you're trying to get us into Japanese wrestling. So I think you're absolutely right. It's probably the best one to go about. There are other promotions which are simple in a different way, but you won't appreciate them. Like UWFI or UWF from the 90s is exceptionally simple, but there's no reason why these people are hitting each other other than the fact that it's a professional sporting event, and which is if you don't get that, there's narrative there you have to layer in and have to understand what's happening with this person and this person. There's loads more narrative. It's like the opposite. It's massively complicated, but it's just two guys kicking each other really hard. But it's much more complex than that. You have to understand, I've watched this guy since he was 12, and this is the 13th time Takada's kicked his head in, and So
it is a whole different thing, but it's a sports thing.
Yeah, it's a sports thing. So this is much more friendly to your psyche than watching, say, UWFI. Let's move on to the next match. Sorry, Karen.
I do love that stuff as well. I mean, I had a whole period of watching UFC and traveling around the world watching UFC matches, because I do like that and I do get that, but it's not necessarily what I want in my wrestling, which is interesting.
No, I think that's the thing. Is like, yeah. Alex Watt, who's one of our original contributors on the Troopany show, used to write for the Mirror as an MMA correspondent, but loved pro wrestling as well. But funnily enough, the two didn't cross over. He watched wrestling to like wrestling. He watched MMA because he liked MMA, but he didn't like, want to split that time up. So there you go. Yes, we're on to the semi-finals of the Super J Cup at this point. Takehiro Murahama defeated Wataru Inoue in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So this is kind of like the ace of who would be the ace of the junior heavyweight division in New Japan versus the ace of the junior heavyweight division in Osaka Pro. Not that there's many heavyweights in Osaka Pro at this particular point. So this was pretty intense though, because Inoue is kind of strong style personified, and Murahama kicks people really hard, and that's kind of all he does. And this is exceptional if you like pain.
My main note for this was ow and strong style. So, just to back all that up. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, this was my favorite match of the entire show.
Oh yeah. It's base, but it's a hoot, definitely.
It really is. It really is. And like, anyway, like more polished than the other match. I was like, damn, these guys are scary. But in a really good way.
Yeah, and it's intriguing. It's a sad that Inoue ended up retiring because of long-term injuries. But again, I think he's one of those guys that's just kind of got lost in the shuffle, because him and Nagata were IWGP Tag Team Champions, as I did with my research for this show. It's like, oh, there you go.
Yeah, different world.
Now we're into the meaty end of things, if you will. It's the OPW Tag Team Championship match. Billy Ken Kid and Tiger's Mask. I'll be very clear, that is Tiger's Mask, not Tiger Mask.
Yep.
It's because he is a baseball player from the Osaka Tigers who happens to wrestle, apparently. This is one of the few times we've actually looked at a Tiger's Mask match. I've explained on many occasions when we're looking at Tiger Mask matches that there is Tiger's Mask, and the two are not related.
Yeah.
We need to be very, very clear here. And they're going up against Shiru and Taka Michinoku. Shiru, I don't know what happened to him. However, Kazayashi, who bears a very close physical resemblance, retired last year and is currently the Booker of GLEAT.
Absolutely.
This was kind of quite classic, kind of two big names who came back from the States and we can do the better than they do, and then coming a cropper because the kids beat them. And it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it. Grumpy Heels versus Young Chargers. It'll never work.
Absolutely classic. I mean, there's just shades of Michinoku Pro, because got Shiru and Taka and Kai and Tai kind of coming back to beat up Delphin's new kids, which is lovely, and they're great. But it's so interesting for me because really my era for Osaka Pro is probably 2007 onwards. So seeing Billy Ken Kid and Tiger's Mask, who ultimately become like the aces, and like their battles have been a big deal and a big part of my experience of enjoying Osaka Pro. Yeah, they're proper babies to me at this point. Tigers is, this character inspired by the Osaka baseball team, the Hanshin Tigers, and he has a lot of baseball moves still. He drops all of those. Tiger's Mask these days is a scary, scary man who can kick the heck out of you. But at this point, he's still doing baseball slides and kind of mock run-ups, which is just, it's a little bit jarring and a little bit bizarre. He actually had, I think the longest losing streak in Osaka Pro, something like 119 matches in a row. So he was not doing brilliantly. Until he met Billy. And Billy is a luchador. He got starting in wrestling watching Tiger Mask. So it all, but then he saw Ultimate Dragon, went to Mexico. My favorite story about Billy is one that he's written about, which is called the Penis Incident. That's what he called it.
Oh, good Lord.
In on AAA when he was over in Mexico, and he doing pretty well actually there, and he was part of a kind of international faction, obviously the heels, because that's how it works in Mexico. Basically, he got on national TV, which was great, but only because he managed to crotch himself on the top rope and fall off, essentially screaming. It was replayed multiple times on Mexican TV. It's actually the first time Tsubasa, who he later ended up working with, ever saw him. So he did not have an auspicious start to his career. Then he came to Osaka Pro, got rebranded as Billy Ken Kid, Billy Ken is another god of fortune in Osaka that actually came from, I think, I'm going to say like Texas or something. It's a really bizarre story. Well worth looking up. But essentially these guys, the Tiger Billy tag team, this is like how they became the start of us being Osaka Pro stars. So this is really cute. They'd only run the title a little bit, maybe a couple of months before this. And ultimately, you know, they would end up facing each other over years. They've reunited a few times. They're one of the kind of combinations in Osaka Pro still, and are still big deals. So both fought in title matches today for Osaka Pro. Tiger's actually won tag titles, I think, for the 13 years since he's last won them. So this is a really nice, like, the start of something match for these guys. But believe me, they get a lot better.
They aren't bad here, to be honest.
They aren't bad, but just like compared to where they end up, like, this is so interesting for me because they do a great job of beating the heels, but it's like it's a piece, right? They very much stand up, and the win is really quite a sneaky pin, not a like convincing victory because they're babies. But yeah, they do eventually manage to be the pride of Osaka Pro.
I mean, as well, it's kind of influential. Chikara is the obvious place where Osaka Pro is influential. They end up having like a working relationship between the two companies in the end anyway. But Dasha Hatfield from Chikara is clearly heavily influenced by Tiger's Mask because, you know, there was like Dasha Hatfield and his cousin, I can't remember his name, the football player. But there was a bunch of sports orientated characters that ended up in Chikara because of, like, they were heavily influenced by Osaka Pro from a family friendly point of view. You look at the places where they put wrestling on, like the Funplex in Eastern Pennsylvania, which is a similar kind of deal as to what Osaka Pro try and do now. So there is a big crossover between that family friendly fun thing that Chikara were trying to do, you know, aside from the other horrors that went on in Chikara, which we best not talk about. Let's think about the positivity. Please. But yeah, and you know, it is horrible. But Eddie Kingston, Orange Cassidy, Bryce Rensburg, doing pretty well these days, and it was the place where they got their start and became national kind of attention. But again, it was a massive influence on Chikara, and again, it shows you the depth to which Osaka Pro has influenced pro wrestling in ways which we probably don't see. Is in a direct line because of the way we appreciate wrestling.
It's interesting though. I always think if you can give me a wrestler, I can get like three steps to Osaka Pro, no problem.
3 shades of Osaka Pro.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the semi-main event, which was a 6-man tag team dream match. The younger generation versus the older generation. The older generation being represented by Jinsei Senzaki, Jushin Thunder Liger, and Super Delphin, going up against Shima, Heat, and Kenta. If you don't know who Heat is, you do. It's Minoru Tanaka. This was his New Japan character. He was IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion at the time. As I before mentioned, Kenta was Noah Junior Heavyweight Champion and looks about 12 years old. Shima was still with Dragon Gate at that particular point, and working his way up through to the legendary status that he currently has. I'm just reminded of a story by Dean Ayas, who long-time British wrestling personality and former promoter, who once booked Strong Hearts for a UK tour and was absolutely fascinated by the fact that Shima loves Tesco. And the only thing we were bothered by going, can we go to Tesco? And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, okay then. It
Do
keeps you
not
happy.
head, I swear.
Sorry?
Do not ever try and get in that man's head. I could not
No,
imagine.
absolutely.
Apparently
Not Dean. Dean's lovely.
Sheila.
Not Dean. Yes. And this is very angry young men being very, very angry towards even angrier old men.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite brands is Angry Old Men. But what's crazy is they're all wrestling. I mean, I think we can even now count Liger as still wrestling.
Well,
For 3
he beat up
minutes.
Joey Janela a couple of weeks ago, and we all approve of people beating up Joey Janela, so that's good.
It's crazy. I mean, Shinzaki particularly, I'm like, dude has not changed
Oh, no.
his 30th anniversary. Like,
Absolutely not. No, absolutely
the
no.
image is
Now,
on point.
president of Michinoku Pro and co-president of Sendai Girls and the world's most intense yoga instructor, Jinsei Shinzaki.
He is amazing. And it's hilarious. So Shima and Kenta were doing, and Shima, Kenta, and Marufuji basically were constantly on the front covers of things doing interviews because they were the pretty boy, futures of wrestling. And there's an interview where Shima and Kenta are supposedly interviewing each other, and they're just talking about who they're going to go for, and everybody wants to go for Liger because he's, on Kenta's side, that's the GHC junior champ, so you want to have a go at him. On Shima's side, they were in the finals of the J Cup last time. He is obviously, there's a New Japan link there, so they're all kind of gunning for Liger. They want to go for Delphin. It's it's Osaka. You've got to go for the head guy there, and he's a legend. Shima's just like, yeah, Shinzaki can't be in. Move on. And this match basically proves it, because at one point Shinzaki has both Kenta and Shima in his hands doing the rope walk. He's got no problem dominating them.
Yeah, Shinzaki's awesome. This period of Shinzaki is kind of like probably his most productive, I think. Like that early 2000s run he had. He was in Badass Translate Trading with Muta. And then the tag team with Hayabusa in All Japan, which obviously sadly got cut short. But yeah, he was kind of like he'd learnt enough, was in absolute pristine physical condition, which he still is.
Oh, is.
I don't understand this guy. How does he look like that? He doesn't look any older now than he did then.
No, still go for a 30-minute singles match tomorrow.
Absolutely. He would main event against Okada at drop of hat whenever you want. How long do you want to go? Yeah, just absolutely. And it must be the yoga, clearly. An absolutely underrated flyer of his era as well. In the era of the greatest flyers of all time. It's not so much that he flew very often. He only really had like one top rope move, but it was perfect. Yeah. No stress on them joints. Rolled through on that top body block and then just rolled through, beautifully landed on his feet. It's just shockingly good.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's safe to say there was a lot of ego in this match.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine the booking meeting before this show? Right then, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, my notes on this are Shima, great wrestler, fucking nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. Still is.
Yeah, kind of the way this match goes, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, when we did an awful lot of work on Glake, because it was probably like the biggest promotion giving stuff away for free, and me and Mark spent 2 years following them. But it's not worth £7 to watch, because I know things are going to go wrong, and it's just a matter of when, and I don't want it to go wrong because I want it to be good.
Yeah,
so I've now got the excuse not to watch it fall apart before my very eyes.
Which helps. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, every promotion kicks you some way or other, but I don't think I could take the regularity with which that happens.
Yes, and paying for the privilege as well is a bit much. Yeah, like, New Japan going down occasionally and coming back up, it's always going to be cyclical. It's never going to be that bad. I can deal with that. But when you've got the thinnest of paper-thin rosters and a bunch of egos in there,
Yeah.
whoa.
It's a shame when you've got some incredibly talented guys who are there or who have been through there. It's
It is. It really is. And it is like, how are this lot still friends? Now, I mean, like Ligo and Shinzaki are still mates, and it is just like, and Tanaka obviously still mates with Shima because they both work together in UWF. Tanaka's the technical director for UWF Lidet. But it is just like, how have they managed not to kill each other in the last 30 years is absolutely remarkable.
Must have been some kind of rules set at some point.
But yeah, this is noticeable as well for the finish. Sorry, we're going to spoil this for you, but Delphin gets pinned, and it's Shima who delivers the pin after an air raid crash. And Meteor wasn't his finisher then. And then Kenta and Heat both count the pin with the referee rather than guiding off the guys coming in.
Yeah.
As if to say, yeah, you're done for now. We're here. Which is an emphatic statement. We don't need... Our guy doesn't need the help. He's just going to be better than you. Which is an emphatic statement as a generation gets to say. And that is, it did them the world of good, clearly. Yeah. So, I wonder what your thoughts on that was.
I mean, Delphin had stepped back a bit at this point. And Delphin, whilst he rarely takes a pin, even these days, he knew his role certainly then in Osaka Pro and has done. And I think that was, it's also no way that the other two were taking it.
Absolutely not. Not in a million years. Go away.
And it did them. It was the right thing in terms of Shima being the guy to beat the guy without a belt at that point. There's a lot of politicking going on there, but it all kind of works out and it makes sense. It's fine. It's interesting going to us. I mean, it cannot be underestimated how big a star, certainly probably up until the 2010s, even then, Delphin was for Osaka. Like, he was the guy, he was the name. Even long after his heyday, and his heyday wasn't even that long. But he was just the guy, and it's quite interesting, I think, now how much influence Shima seems to have as a name, even in Osaka. Osaka has a tower, the Sukinkaku Tower, which is where the Billy Kent statue is. It's it's just a really cheesy tourist attraction. You go right to the top of it, and I went there. There were 3 wrestling posters, all featuring either Glate or had Shima's face on it. And I'm like, yeah, this doesn't shock me. This is my image of how Osaka, or rather how Shima makes himself in Osaka. Being close enough to Kobe. So he has somewhat taken on maybe some of that mental, and Super Dolphin, I think his promotion has overtaken him maybe a little bit now. But he has no problem getting backings for brand new ones. So maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is the thing, is we cover a lot of promotions, and there's a lot of podcasts that cover a lot of different promotions as well, but no one covers all the promotions because there's just so many promotions in Japan now.
Yeah. There's so many promotions in Osaka. It's hard to
that's the thing.
See.
Yeah. It's I can remember when Union was considered a tiny promotion. Now it's actually pretty big. It's quite amazing, the ones that do last, and they have a lot of influence. Promotions that only maybe do a year, but they'll have an influence on something somewhere because everything in Japanese wrestling is connected one way or another.
Yeah.
Or seemingly so. Anywho, main event time for the Super J Cup 2004 Stage 4 final match. Naomichi Marafuji defeats Takahiro Murahama in 14 minutes and 5 seconds. This was really good. There's a couple of blown spots in it, which you perhaps wouldn't have taken for a main event kind of show at this particular time period. But then you realise, like, yeah, but look how long Murahama's been wrestling for.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually not that bad. Basically, the one spot I'm thinking of is like he pushes Marafuji up against a ring post to kick him in the face. Marafuji is going to move, and he doesn't really contact the ring post. And then he has to set it all up again and do it again, which is always awkward when you're doing a spot where you're supposed to come out worse. When he probably shouldn't have bothered, and they could have figured out a different way of doing it. But it's like if that's the spot you've kind of agreed on, it's the key spot of the match to tell the story that his kicks aren't going to be as effective, so therefore that's the reason for him to lose. You kind of, it's when you're young, it's nervous and stuff, and it's like the WWE thing, like now of always redo the spot if you botch it, which obviously has been Matthew has made a living out of that on Botchamania for the last 3 or 4 years. This is why you shouldn't. Just move on. Just do something else. You'll be fine.
It's just because Marafuji's only got 2 years.
That's insane.
But that's that's a
and how much faith
dojo.
And how much faith did they have into still? We're going to stick you in the main event in front of our biggest crowd of the year.
Yeah, it is.
That's a lot of faith.
Fascinating watching this for the 3rd time and going, oh my god, it was so obvious Marafuji was going to win this.
Oh yeah,
because ultimately throughout he is better. Like they are competitive fights. It is not boring. It is interesting, but you can see that he is going to lead Japanese wrestling for several years, and particularly as a junior. There's an image and other stuff behind that, but he is also just really damn good.
Yeah, he's Misawa's chosen one.
Yeah,
very much in that kind of vein. And no, he doesn't wrestle anything like Misawa. And he's one of those guys who just hasn't really kind of like he's a true original. There's not a lot of stuff that he does that is kind of like taken from anyone else. He's Marafuji's Marafuji, and he's that presence there that has been the kind of ballast to Noah for like the last 20 years. And you see all of that here. There's not much changed.
No, there really hasn't, and it is kind of nice to see. I think it's Marufuji currently gets a lot of negativity, and there are some good reasons for that and some bad reasons for that. I don't think being older should ever be a reason for negativity. And he has adapted his style, particularly I would say about 5-6 years ago. He went through a lot of adaptation in terms of stuff he added in, and a lot more kind of submissions. But you can't help but see that this is the same guy. I don't think he's lesser for not being able to do this stuff now. I think we probably need to acknowledge that you cannot keep doing that. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy how, despite kind of, there are incredible juniors in this period. There are incredible juniors he's coming after. He is it's so creative and so interesting, but he's also doing some new stuff in terms of his moveset, what he's going to influence, but also in kind of this whole pretty boy thing was a new thing for Noah, was a growing thing, I think, in kind of wrestling for that period. So there's so much that he has done, and you see it all in this match. I just think it's as somebody who first watched this being a huge fan of Marufuji, this is a great match to watch. It's nowhere near his best.
Oh no, but everything's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the complete package is there, and which is remarkably early in his career. How long into his career at this point? Dude, he's 6 years in. And people don't have that poise of 6 years in. Definitely not. It's the level of confidence about him, the way he attacks moves and knows he's going to land them. There's plenty of stuff where he could really screw up. But it doesn't look just smooth, absolutely smooth, and it's difficult to. How can I put this? he like Hayabusa was the smoothest flyer I ever saw. Right, nothing he ever did was wrong. Right. But people are drawn more to guys like Sabu and Manami Toyota because they look reckless. Marafuji is the guy who was super smooth, but was always exciting. Like it didn't he was always going to land it, and you knew he was going to land it, but it was still like awe-inspiring to watch it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does.
Yeah.
Totally does.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at his show news here, like back when that was murder, and actually was, and you could see it and feel it and be like, oh god. And now we've seen it, hundreds of times, and it doesn't land with the same impact, but so cool.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It's interesting. I think there's a podcasting like comparing the flyers of the mid 90s to 2000s because we don't really get that level of aero wrestling anymore for good reason, because like those people no longer have knees. But you don't. There are a couple of guys, and you probably like Bandito, I suppose, and Vikingo, who can do that stuff. Vikingo not so much anymore because they won't let him, because obviously WWE-ness. But there are guys who can do that stuff, but you just don't get that level of intensity of aerial wrestling, especially in someone like Marafuji, who matches it up with so many heavy strikes and so much like mat wrestling that he's still exceptional at and doesn't look out of place in his repertoire. He was such a total package for a junior heavyweight division, which was kind of, as you see from this tournament, everyone kind of has a different approach to the same problem, but his is kind of much more well-rounded. It's everything all at once.
Yeah.
Full court press wrestling.
And I think the comment, the Super comment was essentially he wrestled everybody else's match as well as his own kind of thing. Like he was Marafuji, but he was prepared to stand up to whatever people brought.
Yeah.
And that was far more adaptable, I think, than most people in the tournament. It was a small field. Would have been interesting if they'd thrown KENTA in there as well, even at this stage.
Yeah, but that's probably the reason why they didn't. I'm pretty sure no one wanted to keep that one for themselves.
I'm sure they wanted to have the 7,000 and all the money that came with that.
Absolutely. The show ends with a presentation ceremony of 500,000 yen to Marafuji and the Super J Cup jacket. You get a jacket if you're in the Super J Cup. Gold Lamy sparkle. Nice.
Yeah.
And it was interesting as well because it was very much kind of like traditional Japanese presentation. We didn't really mention it at the beginning, but there was a presentation of all the wrestlers before the show started. And it goes back to that production thing. Like, they produced it so well. There was like massive set. Osaka Jo Hall has not looked this nice since. Yeah, it's such a microcosm of its time. You don't really get shows like this anymore in the sense of like size for an indie company to do. But even like, New Japan go there and they don't get 7,000 in that building, which is like a sad indictment of where the wrestling business is, I suppose. But it's also like, the downfall that we talked about. I don't want to dwell on the downfall because like there's so much great wrestling in that downfall area that we're just getting around to enjoying now. Like you look at early DDT shows and they're like incredible from that particular time period. People like Io Sky and Ishikawa and all those are just kind of like breaking through at that particular point. So yes, but this is a wonderful microcosm of wrestling in its heyday, I think. Have you any other thoughts on the show itself?
This is an interesting one for me because it is a J-Cup and a Hurricane show, and therefore it doesn't have some of the you'd have some classic heel shit in a Hurricane show that you don't quite get to the same extent here, and you would have probably a little bit more of the kind of comedy time and the lucha influences of Osaka Pro within the Hurricanes. So maybe we get to watch one of those in the future and kind of see the difference here. But certainly I think it's a really fun show, and I think it's a really fun show to see guys who are, like we say, baby Taichi. Being baby Taichi is incredibly charming. Marafuji and Kenta being young Marafuji and Kenta on with all that ego and ridiculousness. There are so many people in this on the cusp of being what we recognize, that it makes it just a fantastic show. I will say today, though, modern Osaka Pro had their biggest show of the year this morning, afternoon in Japan, and they, which I think for a comparison, this is kind of as good as Osaka Pro got in its era as well, when they weren't also dragging in Marafuji and New Japan guys. So there is, on that positive, there is hope. There is a continuation of this, and we still have some of those wrestlers on the shows today. So
there you go. Well, thank you so much for this fascinating chat. I appreciate you bringing the concept to me, which I'm really happy to share with you. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ruth is an Otter, and you can also find my website on Japanese professional wrestling and storytelling at 60minutedraw.com.
You can find me at Sheriff Lone Star on Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Pixel Fed, various other places. Instagram, if you want to see me play guitar a lot, I'm Sheriff Lone Star CX. You can find the show Troopany Show on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and on Instagram as Troopany Show. We are on all of your podcasting networks you can possibly imagine. We're on iTunes and SoundCloud and Spotify, and just get Stretcher, if that's Stitcher, if that's still a thing. I don't know. I have to look it up. We're also on YouTube. If you are listening on YouTube, would you like and subscribe? That would be lovely. We'd like that a lot. It helps grow the algorithm. Leave a comment. Even just say hi. It'd be nice. Please do. In the meantime, we'll be back soon with another Troopany Show. And thank you for listening to us today. Take care. Bye.